Some conservative Republicans are not yet convinced that the one big, beautiful budget reconciliation bill is ready for the dance floor. They're pushing to ensure that the cuts that are being promised are real, and based on my conversations, I think they're making progress. President Trump is hands-on. He met this afternoon with House Freedom Caucus members on the matter. So how'd that discussion go? Well, here to tell us about it, Texas Congressman Michael Cloud. He's a member of the House Freedom Caucus, also a member of the House Appropriations Committee. He joins us by phone on his way back to the Capitol. Congressman Cloud, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Well, thank you. Good to be with you.
Okay, how'd the meeting go?
Well, anytime you get to meet with the president, it's going to be a good meeting. You certainly appreciate his heart for the country, and that comes out in every single conversation, and his desire to get things done for the American people. So, it's good. He listens. He engages, as you mentioned, and, definitely making progress.
So the big issues that, as I understand them in multiple conversations I've had, are when the cuts and reductions take place. Because there's a 10-year window that we're talking about, and I think what most conservatives are saying, look, we've got to realize these reductions so that we can get the deficit down, but that's got to happen sooner rather than later. Did that register with the president?
Yeah, one of the big concerns, in the first draft, if we can call it that, was, and, we've seen this before where a number of bills that will come out and all the fun stuff, shall we say, is in the front end, and then you pay for it many, many years later, even 2-3 elections later. And so, we've worked hard over the last few days to move some of those timelines up for implementation, which helps move the needle on those sort of things. And then, as the president said when he came to visit us yesterday, addressing the waste, fraud, and abuse. And so we've been focused on that and kind of drilling down on where we can continue to work to get that weight off the backs of the American taxpayers. So, these things take time sometimes because the devil's in the details, and we just got to make sure we get it right, because this is just such a unique opportunity. The American people have been looking forward to this for quite some time, to have this opportunity to make real change for the American people. And so we just want to make sure we get it right.
The timing, that's the issue, the House leadership wanting to get this through. Actually, it was hoping to get a vote tonight, but the Rules Committee is still meeting on the bill, so that's probably not going to happen unless it's very, very late in the evening. Do you think you're at a point where it's ready to be voted on?
We're close. We have a framework, and we just got to nail down details. Of course, it'll again go to rules, and then we'll have rules. So there's some official text to be figured out, and got to make sure you get the language right. But definitely really close.
So, as the concessions are made for conservatives, which I agree with. Some Republicans are on the other side, kind of the moderate Republicans, fighting for an increase in the state and local tax cap. Where does that balance stand?
Well, that's the thing we don't want to be doing is to ratchet up the incentives for states who are doing things the wrong way.
Agreed.
And disincentivize it for states doing things the right way. And so, that's been kind of the pushback on the idea to massively expand SALT. Of course, we have to get enough votes to get all the good stuff that's in this in the president's agenda passed. So, we're trying to provide a little leeway in the negotiations where it needs to happen to make sure that we get wins on the president's agenda. But I think we have a framework yesterday that they worked out that keeps the massive expansions that we were looking at. And so, again, it's just nailing down a couple details. I think at this point, I'm optimistic we'll be able to get there.
Well, I commend the Freedom Caucus for continuing to work on this in a reasonable manner. I mean, I think, you got to have the conversations. You can't just walk away from the table. But these two issues of the Medicaid and even the SALT caps, as you said, that allows the deduction that people in high income tax states, blue states that have failed policies, it really is a subsidy of those blue states. The same is true with the Medicaid expansion, that the blue states had expanded it to allow these able-bodied individuals who could be working to be on Medicaid. It's a disincentive to the states to do things responsibly.
Right, and so bringing work requirements into it. And then one of the big issues when we're talking about, again, waste, fraud, and abuse, as the president talked about yesterday, and making sure that we're targeting that, is some of the ways that states have kind of turned the Medicaid into a money laundering scheme. So where, it's very rare, I should say, that you have people coming to Washington, D.C. to say, please tax me more. This is one of those rare opportunities where you have entities coming to Washington, D.C. to say, please tax me more, because then they turn that fee into a reimbursement for the federal government. And it's a way to kind of launder taxpayer money into states in a way that's not what this was for. It's clearly not the intention of what it was stood up for. And the fact that over time, the focus has shifted from the vulnerable, from the disabled, into incentivizing states to keep people out of the workforce. It's an issue, So we're trying to get as much done as we can in this opportunity. Of course, we didn't get here overnight on all these issues, and it's not going to be taken care of in one bill. But there's, we got to make sure that we have a course correction, a significant course correction. And we get a lot of wins for the president's agenda that obviously the American people voted for.
All right, final question for you, Congressman Cloud. Sense of timing. When do you think this may get to the floor?
Sooner than later. I like to think, maybe we can finish. This is a hot item, as you said, driving back from the White House. Now we're going to sit down and kind of put pen to paper, and make sure we have a understanding of where we're headed. Could happen. The next step could happen tonight, tomorrow morning, hopefully, but certainly sooner than later. We don't want this to drag out for weeks. We need to get it done.
All right, Congressman Michael Cloud of Texas, thanks so much for joining us today. Always great to hear from you.
Well, thank you.